Hey, everybody. Welcome to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you this morning. It's getting so exciting as we're closing in on November 5th. It's not even 2 weeks away, everybody. But there are some prizes that are in store. That's what I'm hearing. That's right. Thank you so much. I was getting a little bit of feedback. But there are some surprises that might be in store. Now we're seeing a whole lot going on before I get to that, as we look at the celebrity endorsements, as we look at the challenges that face Democrats in Michigan, the challenges that face Democrats in North Carolina. In Pennsylvania, everyone is saying that everything will turn on Pennsylvania, but they're saying that about Michigan too, Gabe Drobny. And it's right there. It's right there. It's right there. We got to talk about it. But then there are interesting things happening in Georgia, not just on the not just on the electoral side of things. The Ahmaud Arbery case, Minister Curtis Gatewood, a brilliant activist and minister out of North Carolina, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, Gabe Drobny, Democratic political organizer, so proud of this young man and all the great work that he's doing. Attorney Darrell Jones is going to bring us a report that, we thought the Ahmaud Arbery case was behind us. Gentlemen, can you not agree? We said, okay, these guys have been convicted. They're going to jail forever and ever and ever and good, good, good. No, 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 no. They want a new trial. They've been picking apart the jury. Boy, these people, there are no rules. It's just unbelievable. They can just turn this thing inside out if they want to. You can blow holes, literally. If you saw those horrifying pictures of Ahmaud Arbery and the hole that was blown into him because these people chased him down as if he were not human. And they feel that they were justified. See, behind that is that. They felt that they had the right, and they had the prosecutor on their side who told them to go home and wash your hands, literally. But it was your vote that put the prosecutor in the spotlight. It was your vote that turned things around. That's why you've got to vote, not just up high, but down low. Down ballot is the key. And you have to continue to push the Harris Walz campaign so that they become who you need them to be. They already know what they need from you. Now you need to let them know what you need from them. That's the way politics works, everybody. This ain't no date, it's a destination. Stop falling in love, fall in line with your principles, and make things happen. So let's get right to it, everybody. I'm on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. You can stream at am950radio.com. But I want you to meet my morning stars, Carol Saska, my mother, my sister from another mister, Cynthia McClendon, Mike Burries, how you doing? And Andre, and sending you all so much love, everybody. Like and share, like and share, like and share, like and share. Go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and like and subscribe. The Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page, like me, become my friend there. That's the only place I can accept friends. And at Santita J on X, or at Santita J Show, but go to at Santita J. That's really where I'm most active. So let's get right to it. I want to start with you, Gabe Drobny. You were last here in June. And this is before everything just kind of blew up. Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway. And we just, this is when we were worried about losing the race because Joe Biden was there. Then who knew that just 2 weeks or so before the convention, you were going to get a new candidate, then nominee, in Kamala Harris. And then there was this joy, if you will. I mean, no pun intended. Like, oh my goodness, we have a shot. And you saw a boost coming out of the convention, which of course you're going to see. But now we're seeing the New York Times Siena poll, and they say this will be about one of the last polls that they have before the election. They say it's not even within the margin of error, Minister Curtis Gatewood, that it's just tied. Now I see Matt Taibbi, a reporter for whom I have enormous respect, who said, beware of the fact, and let's start looking at the fact that so many editorials all across the country are warning of violence post-election and the measures that the government will take, basically to not just to quell the violence, but to silence us by keeping us kind of locked in, and I'm looking at it all. because they're saying that too frequently. It's almost as if, there's some things they didn't tell us how dangerous COVID was initially, because you don't shout fire in a crowded building when you can't find the exit. So all of this about the vote, and about the election results, something about that just doesn't. I come out of the civil rights movement. And we have seen it all. We've stepped through the looking glass, gave dramedy. And so I'm always going to ask questions, because before the world knew who J. Edgar Hoover was, Dr. King and his crew did. When the FBI was a top 10 television show on TV, Attorney Darrell Jones, you knew exactly who these people were. You knew what they would do. And you knew the nefarious, the bad deeds, the misdeeds they would do, but you also saw the good things that the government could do too. You saw it all. So let's get to it, Gabe. Oh, I'm always glad to see you. And I was so thrilled to hear from you this week. I said, well, he's going to get 1 minute of sleep before November 5th. And he said, I'm eager to share with you and your audience what I've seen. Help us to understand what we've seen, because you're going to Michigan. Um, Very worried about Michigan, which is very winnable. But anytime Alyssa Slotkin, the Democratic nominee for the U.S. Senate, current congresswoman from Michigan, anytime she's calling the Harris Walz campaign and she's sounding the alarm, look, you guys, I could win this thing, but it's looking like I might lose it. You got to change. If a former CIA officer is telling you that you need to change your tactics and your policies, something's going on here. Not to mention the fact that you're saying, let me start with Pennsylvania, because everyone is saying this morning that Pennsylvania is the linchpin in this campaign. And you are seeing what?
Yeah, everything I've seen is, in my opinion, has been consistent. I really do believe, just like a lot of folks, that Pennsylvania is going to decide the election. The blue wall is going to be vital. I do not foresee the Harris campaign taking over Georgia. I don't think that we're going to get Arizona. I think we could. Nevada is a really 50-50 state, and then if we lose Michigan, then you're going to have to win Nevada. And then it's going to leave it down to Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is going to be a very, very close call. Their election laws are very oppressive. They have very, very outdated and lackluster election process, and I learned that's why there was so much turmoil in 2020. And that needs to be corrected for the future, especially with a Democratic governor. But Pennsylvania is going to be tight. It's going to be really close. Harris's ties are not strong there because she's naturally from the West Coast. Tim Walz's ties are not strong there because he's naturally from the Midwest. So that's where that problem is really an issue, and you're seeing that on the ground. So those relationships are not as strong in Pennsylvania, and that Teamsters endorsement really did hurt. It really did hurt. So you need the union vote in Pennsylvania. It's a Rust Belt state. Pittsburgh is going to be, they're a little bit underwater, the Harris ticket in Pittsburgh, underwater in central Pennsylvania and Scranton. They're going to get Philly, obviously, but they're going to have to really, really have it all hands on deck, and they're going to have to tap into New York's network. They're going to have to tap in from all over the country, and they're going to have to put all hands on deck in Pennsylvania, because I do think it's going to decide the election.
Well, what about Governor Shapiro? I know he didn't make it on the ticket because progressives and a lot of Democrats looked into his background and said, at this time, he's unacceptable. Yes, he wrote about, really, quite frankly, they were racist observations of the Palestinians, because he felt that they needed to be paternalized. And he served in the IDF as in his early 20s, 23, 24, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And but when you run for president or when you run for office, everything you've ever said just is put out there before people, and that's just how it is. The fact that he's not on do you think it would have helped had he been on the ticket?
Yeah, I mean, if I was, if I had that decision, I would have gone with Shapiro. That's neither here or there. That's done is done. That's hypothetical. But
No, because I think it's important because that will be an issue that
it will be an issue.
people tried to say, even though many people felt that a lot of his, what one could term his Zionist positions, were unacceptable, particularly now.
Yeah, I unfortunately, we're all, I think we all want peace here, and we're all progressives here. But in terms of win strategy, Shapiro was, him. He was a really good pick. Pennsylvania is so important. Minnesota is not a swing state. It was underwater early, but that was just in June, and that was just the initial pushback after the post-Biden debate. That was always going to be regained just because of the layout of Minnesota. But not picking Shapiro, is it going to cost us the election? It might. There's so many things that cost you an election, but that was a big decision that was made, and he's very popular in Pennsylvania. He's a bipartisan governor in a swing state, in a centrist state. So I think, in hindsight, if we do lose, that will be a factor, and that will be looked at and observed. And I would have picked Shapiro as my vice presidential pick. I thought that would have been the right move.
But even though he was so hard on the students, I mean, his tactics against the students who were protesting what's happening in Gaza, he was very heavy-handed and really was not very supportive of their free speech.
No, he was not. But in terms of the broad scheme, the war is probably not. It's not even top 5 on voters' minds. It's a big factor in Michigan, and the Democrats really missed an opportunity at the DNC to at least mitigate those tensions, right? Not letting a Palestinian speak, not taking a meeting. The Michigan mayoral endorsement was a big deal and a big miss. Trump was flying down to, I forget the name of the town, Hamtramck. Hamtramck, yes. He was meeting with them for months and months and months, and they had opportunity. The Harris ticket had opportunity, and they ultimately decided that taking the meeting wasn't worth it. And that was, we'll see if that's a big factor. I thought it was a massive miss, but there was a missed opportunity in the DNC to at least mitigate and have that conversation. Now it's not there. Wow. So it's too late for that.
Okay, yes, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway.
Thank you. I wanted to ask Gabe if the Harris campaign spoke about the possibilities of bringing Shapiro into the administration, whether his coattails would be available to them in that sense.
Yeah, I was actually working with Shapiro's folks in Pennsylvania for a month, and it's been floated. Just that's once again just insider hypotheticals as as a attorney general. They've said that, or cabinet position, but just because in terms of the national security threats that we talked about earlier, with the floating idea that there might be another insurrection by the far right. So, and Shapiro's background as a lawyer, as already the state's attorney, or the attorney general of the state of Pennsylvania, they think that he could be a very influential voice and an experienced surrogate for that role. But that's right now. You got to win the election, right? You can't do anything until you win November 5th, and so it's a big miss. It's going to be a factor in the state. Once again, you got to get all hands on deck in Pennsylvania. It is so important. You need to activate summer league. You need to activate. You need to tap into that New York network, because the Bronx, for instance, New York City is only an hour and a half away from the border of Pennsylvania. You have to put resources and infrastructure in there right now. And if you don't, I do think that will cost the state.
Well, what is happening? What do you see in Michigan?
What I see in Michigan right now is, once again, like we just said, the Arab community is really upset, as we all know, and rightly so. They have reason to, and I think it is a little bit too late to tap into that vote. So you're going to have to make it up with the Latino vote and the Black vote, and you're going to have to really work Detroit. Just like last week, our mayor in Chicago, Brandon Johnson, was sent to Detroit. He has value there. You're going to have to send infrastructure there, and you're going to have to send bodies there. And I think right now the Latino vote is probably the most important in Michigan, which you can get that vote even this late, but you're going to have to address it like right this second. So, we'll see what happens with Michigan. It's a very winnable state. Gretchen Whitmer is very, very popular in the state. So hopefully it carries. That's going to be really, I think the Democrats will win Wisconsin. I think Michigan is a toss-up for sure. And I think Pennsylvania, I think we are behind. We're going to come from behind Pennsylvania.
So what do you see? Well, okay, let's go down ballot.
Down ballot, you're still seeing that what they feared in the Biden campaign, and as the Tennessee state representative might even know, probably is familiar with as an elected official. And by the way, my applause to you. It's the Harris ticket is dragging the down ballot down. You're seeing a lot of the especially in the U.S. Senate and congressional candidates distancing themselves and threading the needle as much as possible and distancing themselves from the Harris campaign. Obviously those resources and infrastructure still help them, but in terms of just the marketing of the pitch to the voters, you're seeing the coordination is not as strong as you would wish it would be, especially as, it's not common to have the top of the ticket drag the bottom of the ticket down, like we're seeing in North Carolina, like we're seeing in Texas, even in Florida with the U.S. Senate race down there. You're seeing in Montana that more than likely John Tester is probably too far gone. Slotkin in Michigan is distancing herself from the ticket and trying to thread the needle and plug in resources where she can. But in terms of the statewide race, she's going to be, on her own, more or less, in terms of carrying the vote there. Tammy Baldwin is in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's actually pretty good. Their infrastructure is actually really good. Of all the blue walls, they have the best operation right now.
Well, it's painful because, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway and Minister Curtis Gatewood and Attorney Darrell Jones, Vice President Harris had to bring the Biden team with her.
That's actually not true, though.
No, but I'm saying some of the infrastructure, that is true at the upper. I'm saying the upper echelon. I mean, there's some people but remember I'm looking at what I see at the people at the top. And the people who, the last folks who are in your ear. I mean, she brought in some other people, but when he gave her the border, everybody wondered, does he like her? The border is an intractable issue. Yeah. Then with Ron DeSantis, does he like her? He didn't have her back on that. I mean, I'm just saying because she's still the vice president in his administration, Gabe. Yes. Let us not forget that, y'all.
Yes.
She has a job right now.
Yes.
She gets a paycheck from the government every 2 weeks as the vice president under Joe Biden, who will be president until January. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm just saying she can't get around it. And we need to be clear on that because of course she brought some of her people in, but she can be checked and she's sounding like it. That's where the word salad comes from. Because she's done better with the Middle East. When she was approached by that young Palestinian American activist, instead of saying, I am speaking, she did end with that. She did say, look, he has a point. It's not enough.
Yeah, she just started doing that though,
So, is there what would you recommend that she do in these last 10, 11, 12 days?
You got what you got, right? As they say, the cake is already in the oven, right? So, in terms of the Beyonce endorsement, that is going to help already. And, obviously that race is actually very winnable right now. Beto O'Rourke did a phenomenal job in Texas registering voters. I applaud him. It was very impressive what he did and very commendable. So, so you got what you got, right? So you're going to have to turn out the Latino and Black vote. And if you don't, it will cost you.
Are they not excited about her? What is?
Well, I am a Latino, and unfortunately, the Latino vote, the number one issue is the border, which is, that's a whole nother complex issue. And, the Latino vote has slipped out of our hands, right? And that's where I do criticize the Harris campaign. I thought demoting Cesar Chavez's granddaughter, who was Biden's campaign manager, was a massive mistake. I thought that was a massive blow. And
why?
Because she has really, really deep relationships with the Latino community. She speaks Spanish. She knows the layout. She's got the historic knowledge. She has the infrastructure, Dolores Huerta, et cetera, et cetera. I thought that was a big miss. I was really disappointed that change was made in her campaign closest advisors. So, you're seeing a late push right now. I just read in New York Times before I hopped on the radio show that the Latino vote is now the last push because we are the lowest voting turnout demographic per capita in the United States. And the Latino vote has slipped out of our hands, especially with the male demographic.
That is unbelievable. Uh, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, because you now have Donald Trump, former President Trump, running as the man who's going to protect women. I get it. But even getting beyond that, because running on but Trump to me has always not been smart. If you deal with the bread and butter issues, how people are going to eat from day to day, the things that we live with, that for me, that's what I want to hear about. Because when I'm listening to these radio talk shows on television or on the radio, as I'm looking at the blogs, as I'm looking at comments, people really, the first thing they want to know is when are the gas prices going down? When are the grocery? What about when can I buy eggs again? I mean, it's that sort of thing. But maybe I'm missing something because you're in Tennessee. What do you see?
Well, I think you hit it again. It's about economics. It's about your pocketbook. It's about whether you're living day to day or whether you actually have the ability, the resources to plan for the future. We make a big deal out of creating wealth and generational wealth transfer, but the majority of our folks are still trying to survive, and that thriving is a luxury and an option for way too many people of color, Black and Hispanic. Some of the things that seem to be low hanging fruit, we're making the last push at it. President Obama last night was speaking the truth of the stimulus checks and what the difference is with the economy that he left for Trump versus the economy that Trump left. How badly he messed the economy up, and the credits in terms of what the president before him, Obama, left him. How he messed that up, similar to the way he messed up his daddy's money. If I were being heard in Harris's ears, I would have made a big deal out of that early on. This man can't manage his own stuff. He mismanaged his presidency, and we didn't talk about it. We did not go where it's a lot of the allegations are that Black men are thinking that Trump made that money available, those checks available, stimulus checks available, merely because his name was on the bottom line. When a lot of our people receive checks, and we believe in checks. A lot of us still don't have bank accounts, so we believe in receiving a good check. And if your name is on that bottom line, then we think it came from you. That it's not that sophistication. A lot of that sophistication is just not in our community. So we get back to what do we do in between the elections? How well engaged are we in our community in between the elections and helping people to figure things out and how to do more than just survive? As you know, Santita, my mantra is that education and economics determine how free you will be in America today. Where those intersect, that's where your freedom is. That's how much freedom you're going to get. And it applies, you can take it and apply it to housing. You can take it and apply it to the justice system. You're going to get the amount of justice that you know about and that you can afford. So we've got to, and I know this is all about what do we do next after the election, but we can learn from what we didn't do up to this point and make that last run, that last push about doing some of those things now.
Minister Curtis Gatewood, you are You're in a very interesting space because you're in North Carolina, where, I mean, which should be more of the focus. But it's interesting. Trump has made it his focus on one level for whatever reasons. You know, the thing is, this politics is as much science as it is art.
Right.
Okay, and the fact is, the resources that the people need, they've been offered what, $600 million. It has been estimated that it will take at least $53 billion for North Carolina to be made whole again.
Right.
$53 billion. We've given more than that to Ukraine. I mean, because you have, and I explain it this way, everybody, up to a certain amount of monies that are allocated by our government that are given away, you don't have to report it publicly, Daryl. So this money that they say that we've given Ukraine, what, tens of millions of dollars, it's much more than that. Because if you stay under a certain number, if you don't meet the threshold, you can just cut checks. That's what we've been doing. We were doing that with Israel too. We do that routinely. And the fact that North Carolina alone is not, we're not even looking at making it whole. Now that the winter is upon your fellow North Carolinians and the mud is about to freeze, people are trying to figure out, who live in these motorized homes, how can I get my floor insulated so I don't freeze this winter? And let me just say, freeze to death. I mean, this is awful. Asheville does not have drinkable, bathable water right now. I mean, Asheville? I mean, what is this? And yet you all are voting. You said more than 2 million?
Right. More than 2 million as of Thursday morning. So right now, I'm getting some feedback. I don't know what it is, but but as of Thursday morning, over 2 million people voted in North Carolina, which of course is more than in 2020, about over 6% more. Uh, am I saying okay? Are you getting feedback from me? Are you getting feedback, Sister
I
Jackson?
just got a little bit of it, yes.
Yeah,
But I
some
just
different
muted
way.
everything.
I don't know what it is, but let me just try to continue. Um, Everything I hear is an opportunity for those who say they are serving communities, who say they are ministers or missionaries or all of these people who are supposed to be out here doing good things. Uh, it is time to get busy. So I'm hoping that people who are listening, the only way constructive criticism can be constructive if we use the criticism and apply it to make the change that is necessary. I contend it's not too late. Get out there. You have organizations out there like Black Women's Matter, various organizations. If you don't know where you're supposed to vote, you can always contact the North Carolina State Board of Elections, because there were some changes made as it pertains to what happened in Western, 25 counties in Western North Carolina. Uh, Now, rather than October 29, you can mail in your ballot. Deadline now is November 4th. There's some changes made that we need to be aware of. There's been some flexibility also based on Hurricane Helene. So we would like for people to, again, if you're not sure about how you can vote as a result of the hurricane, uh, tune in to your state board of election, NC state board of election. You can put into your computer. It will run down any changes that have been made that you might need to be aware of. I do want to say with this opportunity that we do not. Donald Trump has not given us a viable option. He has not provided an option that is reasonable for anyone who say they are Christian or religious or civil rights or black man or whatever you might say, because of the fact when you look at issues of police misconduct, which is a, which is an issue that's been killing black folk and has been escalating. We have an issue of violence in our community. Since 2020, violence has become the number one killer of youth across the country, but it's about 3 times in the black community. If you add to that the escalation of police misconduct, we cannot have a president who's saying he's going to go out across the board to give immunity to police officers. You cannot have a president who's wanting to remilitarize the police when we know that those police officers have not been trained. Many of them have ties to Confederacy sympathizing organizations or KKK, and those police officers are not being vetted to the point where we can minimize to the extent that is needed the police misconduct that is going on based solely on racism. Make no mistake about it. New initiatives that will allow police to get more diversity training and all that, that's fine. But if you are a racist, KKK member, skinhead, Proud Boy, all these guys that are coming around and infiltrating the police department, you have to have real fighting against the police that would stop and minimize what we are seeing in the streets.
Minister Gatewood,
yes.
one moment, because we have a very poor connection with you right now, and I'm trying to figure out what that, because we didn't have that initially.
Right.
I want you to come out and come back in.
Okay.
Come out and come back in, because you're saying something that's very, very important.
Okay.
Because you talk about the militarization of America, Gabe Drobny and Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway and Attorney Daryl Jones. It's like that's being prepared, that's being readied. Because if you read editorials from coast to coast, they're saying, look, we're expecting violence. They're preparing you for it. And I'm like, wait a minute, you could very easily prepare us for peace.
Come on.
But they're not doing that. So you exit and you come back in. We could be prepared for peace, but they're not doing that. And we need to start asking those questions, because to militarize America that is not good. And that's an understatement of the year, And so let's get right to it, everybody. Cynthia McClendon, I heard you. We're going to get that straight so that we can hear from him. But let me go to you, Attorney Daryl Jones, chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, because you are also out on the hustings. And so before we get to the Ahmaud Arbery case, because, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway and Gabe Drobny, I want you all to hear about this, because this is a big, 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 big deal. Daryl Jones, what are you seeing? Because you've heard Gabe really give us an overview, which I think is so important, of what he's seeing on the ground. Because how many doors have you knocked on? By June, you had knocked on how many doors?
Over 30,000.
Okay, before we get to you, because you and Daryl are great door knockers. You're on the ground, but that's an extraordinary number of people. What have you been hearing? Because the same pain that was there at the beginning of the year is there now, and it's been amplified, because people feel that, okay, now is the time for me to make my concerns known. And we're seeing what Democrats and Republicans are and are not doing. That's pulling out the people who will vote for them and the people who are going to vote, period. And you see a sizable portion of the electorate who are going toward Jill Stein and Cornel West, because the duopoly it wasn't broken by Trump. It was being broken. The fact is, when you saw Occupy and the Tea Party, which were two sides of the same coin, you saw something else that was going on in America. The fact is, people are angered and they feel betrayed, and they have been. We bail out Wall Street. They socialize their losses, but they personalize their wins. We make Wall Street whole. We don't make Americans whole. You see what's happening in North Carolina and throughout these areas where, and the poorest areas get hit the hardest, Daryl. They're not, my thing is, you're going to allocate $600 million to North Carolina. The governor just said the preliminary findings that we need $53 billion in this state alone. $53 billion. Yeah, well, that's what they need. So next time these other countries need checks cut, can't help you right now. I got to take care of this. And that's just North Carolina. That's not South Carolina. That's not Georgia. That's not Florida. That's not Tennessee.
And Santita, that's the bottom line, right? Is that Americans want to take care of Americans first. And it's not that we're against anyone else or anything like that, but we need to be certain we're taking care of home. And one of the things that former President Trump was really successful at doing was going after immigration and the whole migration crisis, and raising the question of what's the impact of that on the everyday American, raising that concern. As you know, you and several others that are and Gabe that are in Chicago often lift up. You have a migration crisis that's going on there, where people are being given money, being given places to live, being given things that folks that have been U.S. citizens have not had that opportunity. And there's a resentment that's going to be there, that's going to exist for the people that are saying, those are my tax dollars that are going to work, that aren't helping my family. And so, that's a major issue, I think, that has to be addressed and hasn't been adequately addressed. But equally so, one of the things that Gabe lifted up, and it was our experience when we were on the ground in Pennsylvania. We were in Pittsburgh last week, I believe it was. And one of the most striking things when we were in Pittsburgh was that we went to like 5 of the poorest African-American communities that are there. Zero signage, no touch from the party, from the Democratic Party to say there's an election, we need you to vote. No touch of them at all. So you can't run a campaign where you're not going to your base telling them that we value you, we need you, we want you. So that's one of the issues that's being faced in Pittsburgh. And so hearing Gabe's report was consistent with what the experience was that we had. We went into those communities to let them know about the election, to let them know about registration, to let them know what they needed to do. But it's the campaign's responsibility to go after their voters. Not those of us who are out there just telling people you need to register to vote. It's the campaigners' responsibility. They need to pick that up. We recently had a conversation with the commissioner of voting in Philadelphia. They're concerned with the numbers that they have that are coming out and the response of people. So, these are issues that, and I don't know what needs to happen, but I do know that we're going to be in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh next week, encouraging people to come out and to vote. And it's just, I'm not certain what's happening, but I know that there's a disconnect that's there. Let me raise one other point, Santita, because, I think Gabe was right on it, and I want to just lift this up. When we're talking about Governor Shapiro being the candidate on a ticket, it's fine in my book for you to say, okay, I'm not going to have him as the candidate on the ticket. I'm going to listen to what my progressive voters are saying. I'm going to take their consideration in. But at that point, you've got to go all in on Michigan. You can't go half in on Michigan, half in on Pennsylvania, because when you go and you play the middle of the road, you get hit by both sides, and that's what's happening. She's getting hit by both sides. You choose your horse, you ride your horse, and you make it the best race that you can. That's the concern that I think has been raised from what is happening here. Now, how can it be corrected? There's still time, I think, to do something with social media and everything else, but you got to take some really confident, solid steps to do it. And that's not, and we just haven't seen that. Saying there's goodness on both sides or whatever, the two state existence, all of that stuff, that's not going to do it in Michigan right now, because the damage, I think, is too deep for that to be able to happen. So you got to take some really strong steps. You got to separate yourself from the Biden administration and say, I'm now speaking as what the Harris administration will do. That's what I think needs to be done if she wants to really do a strong statement in Michigan in terms of that piece, Santita.
But the thinking is not there. I'm seeing, because I think they're watching too much TV. I mean, because they're frothing at the mouth. They're excited that Beyonce is going to be there. That's wonderful. Willie Nelson, the boss.
You win the popular vote and lose the electoral college.
But they're not my political leaders. No one's following them. I mean, this is another time. I mean, the Swifties, we found that a lot of these tens of millions of followers that most of these people have, they're not even real. I mean, let's keep it 100. I mean, you don't know who's following you. You know that the algorithms suppress progressives. That's what they do. Reverend Jackson is one of the 10 most well-known names on earth. We can barely get him to 200,000 followers. And you can just keep on going. Remember at the Ahmaud Arbery trial, when Reverend hadn't even been there, when the lawyer said, "Hey, we don't want," because he got him confused, I guess, with Reverend Dr. William Barber. We don't want Sharpton here, and Reverend Sharpton, and Reverend Jackson. Reverend hadn't even been there. Well, something very interesting. A friend of ours who's really into these things said, we tracked some of the other people. I just want, because Google has Google Analytics. You can see where you are if you're being searched. They said we looked at some of the names that the lawyer mentioned, and there were 200,000, just under 200,000 searches. Tennessee State Representative for Reverend Sharpton, who's one of the probably the best known active civil rights leader at this time. Guess how many searches there were for Reverend Jackson? Anybody want to hazard a guess? Just help me. Anybody?
I would say it should be 7 figures.
It was 19 million.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I said, whoa,
That's
let
impressive.
me find that myself.
Wow.
And it was within the hour. As soon as they called his name. So you got to be suspicious of social media, because you don't know who's being amplified and who's being suppressed.
Absolutely.
All these people who are running away from P. Diddy now, who should be running away from the CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, and I will be dealing with that next week, because he's the groomer. Yeah, I did say that. Yeah, he and his partner had a partner who was out finding boys. Oh, you didn't know that? Oh yeah, Attorney Jones. They would find boys who were vulnerable. They break them down, and then they bring them in, and then they would give them drugs to relax them if they resisted their advances, so that they could rape them.
Wow.
But you know what? Diddy's parties are called freak-offs. You know what they're called for them, for these white men? Sex events. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that next week. Sex events. It's all wrong and crazy, but with Diddy's people, they were grown. At least that was the first iteration of this story. I'm not making excuses for anyone, but I am sick of it all. I'm sick of the perversion and the sickness, all of it.
Right.
It's just all ungodly.
Can-
It's ungodly for people not to be fed. All of this perversion that's out here is ungodly. Yeah, I'm saying it, y'all, because that's where I am, 10 toes down on this. I am sick of this, because I do not believe that God wants us to make a world where he's uncomfortable.
Lord of mercy.
But what is this? So, I'm just saying, I'm saying that, these people, you can't, the Democrats have to listen. And I'm telling you, because I've been in the room with them, they don't listen, Daryl. They don't listen, Minister Gabe. Well, they're not listening to you, Gabe Drobny. This Tennessee State Representative G.A. Holloway, they don't listen. And now you've seen a shift. You have Trump, who's calling to not fund any more wars. Now, you can read into that whatever you want, but that's what he said. And the intelligence establishment is mad with him about it. They are. That's a fact. I'm not saying that he's a peacenik. I'm saying that is what has happened. And you got the Democrats pushing for war. You got more and more Democrats who are sponsoring candidates who are from the CIA. What? I mean, what kind of bizarro world are we in here? In the meantime, the real questions are not being asked. The real discussion about North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, all these people. I mean, because we are all a storm away from a disaster. Do you mean to tell me this is what the government's going to do for me? People are asking those kinds of questions right now because they are voting like crazy all across the country. As of yesterday, 27 million Americans had voted.
Right.
As of yesterday, Attorney Jones, folks are out here, they're voting in North Carolina through the mud. They're going to be heard. Now I wonder whom they're voting for. I don't even want to look at who's registered as Democrat, because folks are going past their own parties.
Right.
They're voting the way.
Right.
Minister Gatewood, before we go back to you, Daryl Jones.
Yeah, I do want to reiterate some things that
Thank you for
might have
fixing
been seen.
it. Yeah, we
Excuse me?
got that now. You fixed it. There you go. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, okay. So, getting back to some of the issues, the main issues that I think are facing African Americans and other people, and like I said, maybe our people will need help and not so much reliance on the Harris campaign. Some of these people are not activists. Some of them are not necessarily focusing on civil rights and the aspect of making sure the least of these are being protected with the policies and the choices that we have. So some of us are going to really have to step up based upon what I'm hearing, especially today. Wow, based upon what I'm hearing, I really feel like we have to make some phone calls to pastors and various people in the community to say, look, are you guys really getting the word out? Are you really letting people know?
Oh, wait a minute. Hold
here?
on. We have to do it ourselves. Because one thing I learned from Reverend, you don't wait for them to do it. You see
Right.
that,
Yeah.
Jones.
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Based
Yeah.
upon what I'm hearing, we need to get on the phone. We need to make some phone calls. We need to, some of the main organizers that we do know on the ground, some of the organizations that we know on the ground. We need to ask some serious questions because I personally, I like to take responsibility of our lane. It's a lot easier for me to say what Kamala Harris had not done yet and other people, but in my lane of organizing the people on the streets, then I think everybody need to look at their lane and say, wait a minute, we have to do something because what I see, when you talk about immigration, for example, I see a racist, white supremacist uh, emergence that's trying to stop the influx of people of color, of Black people. So they're not so concerned about protecting our jobs.
And brown people.
Yeah, Black and brown people. And so they're not so concerned about protecting our jobs. Even you saw that during the election where Donald Trump and J.D. Vance went out and actually lied on Haitian immigrants who were legal. So I'm just saying, so this is not about Trump as this good guy trying to protect so-called Black jobs.
Wait a minute. And where's J.D. Vance's wife?
Exactly.
Look, people are
So we need to
entitled.
I
Well,
guess
no,
my
let me
point
say
is we
this.
need to do more educating on
Well,
what
let
some of
me
the things
say
that we are
this.
seeing. And just
Because
like, for example, those checks that went out with Donald Trump's name on it after he destroyed the economy. And
yes.
Barack Obama had basically brought out from the gutter of hell and started putting together an economy that people could actually see. Trump came in and rolled off that economy and then started looking like he's the good guy. All of a sudden, when he's actually tearing the economy down, he will be the first president to leave it worse than what he found. So there are a lot of things that people just don't understand, and they're going off. And people say, well, don't talk that much about Trump, but we really have to. And people say, don't use scare tactics. Well, if the truth would scare you, you have to tell the truth. And because a lot of times they will actually lie with scare tactics. We can't forget the Willie Horton and all these other things that they actually use to win elections. So if we know the truth, and we should tell the truth about what we are facing as a community, especially in the form of violence. Because again, I did not finish. In 2020, we saw the escalation of violence amongst youth, which became, by 2020, that was the number one killer of young people. By 2021, there were more Black people killed by violence than at any time on record. These things are not being mentioned. So we have to be alive to vote. We have to be alive to do some of the things that we're saying we need to do. So first of all, we need to find out ways to minimize death in our communities. That's through healthcare. That's through minimizing violence. That's through minimizing these domestic terrorists that we are talking about with the issue that just emerged, where you see these white guys went out and ran down this Black man. We had a Black man recently hung in Henderson, North Carolina. So do not think for a moment that domestic terrorism is not on the rise. And civil rights organizations and ministries and all these things, they are obligated to enlighten the people so that we can, in fact, see what should be the priorities when we do look at some of these candidates. Of course, we need to take care about what is going on across the sea when you're talking about Palestinian people being the genocide that's being put against our people. We have to stand for that. Make no mistake about it. Simultaneously, however, we must talk about what is happening on the ground in America as well. And so what I'm saying is our people have to be educated and given a full picture, putting everything in context so that we can understand that we are in a crisis. We're in a civil rights crisis. We're in a violence crisis. We're in a crisis with the emergence of white supremacy. And we cannot afford to have a white supremacist liar at the helm who has shown that he will not be prosecuted, he will not be held accountable. And so he has been left without the guardrails. And we must do something about this. Now,
But wait a minute, but we have
okay,
to look at the policies that enable this.
excuse
Because
me?
we have to look at the policies that enable this. Let us be very clear. The country was structured this way.
Right.
I
Well,
mean, because you have white supremacist policies. The
we
Electoral
do.
College was erected to protect slavery. That's what we do.
Right.
And so, I mean, and the reason I have pushed back on talking about Trump, and I'll tell you why. We're in the cult of personality in the United States. That's what we do. And one of the things that I don't want to do is really be engaged in that. And I think you should tell the truth. And when you tell the truth, that should unsettle people, not frighten them, because we know fear is not of God. We should unsettle them and make them move. That having said all of that, by focusing all of this attention on a person, we're not looking at policy. Because all you have to do, they've already switched out Trump. It's called J.D. Vance.
But
It's
can I
called
say
Senator Cotton.
my
You got,
focus will deal
I mean,
directly with policy?
no.
My
But
focus
what I'm
will deal
saying
with,
is,
okay,
what I'm saying to you is that you got a long line of folks right behind them who are younger, who are tougher, who are meaner. And if we don't prepare our children for that fight, like my mama and daddy prepared me on the night that Reagan won, they said, my father was with Carter that night. If you look at the tapes, he led him onto the stage. He had become his chief surrogate. And when he got home, a day or so later, he said, I want you to know, that night, my mother said, you're going to see just how mean this system can be. She said, you're about to see this. She said, because you all grew up in a desegregated America, you have no idea what awaits you.
right,
But this man right here, he's going to show you.
right,
By opening up his campaign, one of his first 4 or 5 events was in Philadelphia, Mississippi, where they killed Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney.
right,
I mean, calling Dr. King, alluding to him being a communist or having communist ties, not mentioning AIDS for the first several years of its administration, as people were dropping dead like flies.
right.
And, but stay right there. I'm going to break here.
Okay.
You're right, Carol Saskin. We need your mother. And my mother will tell you. Maxine Waters talked about it the other night. She said, this is my sister. And she says things, and you know this, Attorney Jones, that end up coming true down the road a piece. They sound outrageous. They sound crazy. My mother predicted.
Jason, I do want to respond.
No, I want you to respond,
Yeah,
but I want you to
okay.
respond as I make this break here for
Okay.
AM 950 Radio, my family here. Want to send you all so much love. Thank you for staying here. For those of you who want to continue on with us, I want you to hear from Daryl Jones as long as he can stay with us about the update on the Ahmaud Arbery case. You think it's over? No. What did Karen Carpenter and Richard Carpenter sing? We've only just begun. There's more to it, everybody. They're trying to get out of this conviction. We got to talk about that. God bless you, everybody. Get out and vote, 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 vote. I'm Santita Jackson, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. God bless. Let me reintroduce my panel. Minister Curtis Gatewood from North Carolina, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, Gabe Drobny, brilliant young activist. And yes, I have to give you those handles. We've missed you since June. You have been out campaigning and you've been giving us the latest on what you're seeing on the ground, as of June, having knocked on more than 30,000 doors. And and I was about to give you Tennessee, but no, you're a DMV man, Daryl Jones, Attorney Daryl Jones, chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition. But Minister Curtis, and you are down with, and the reason we know about the Ahmaud Arbery case, everybody, is because of Attorney Barbara Arnwine and Attorney Daryl Jones, and you can hear them on WAOK, you see WOL, DC, every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, because they were the ones who were sounding the alarm. They said, you know what? There's a case down here. No one's hearing about, because we were in the pandemic, right? You said, no. This black man, a young black man, a kid, was chased down by 3 white men, and he was shot down like a dog. You've got to see this. They're the reasons we know about this case. And so we want to talk about that. But we've been talking about this election. We are not even 2 weeks away. By the time you hear this, we will be a little more than a week away from the election. The election has already started, everybody. Let's be very clear. Early voting has started as of Thursday, October 24th. 27 million Americans had voted already. Please go to vote.org, find out your status, find out where you need to go vote. When you go to the polls, not if, but when you go, because I know you're going to go. Call 866-OUR-VOTE if you have any problems. I have to tell people this, Minister Curtis Gatewood, because I don't want people to leave the polling stations. Stay right there. Speak with the lawyers at 1-866-OUR-VOTE so that they can resolve your issues. One of your concerns, Minister Curtis Gatewood, before I pivot to you, Darrell Jones, because this is really, I think, going to kind of go into what you're going to bring to us, Attorney Jones, because he's talking about police misconduct.
Right.
And you're talking to us about just police malfeasance, which is really at the heart of the Ahmaud Arbery case, but you also bring in the prosecutor. I mean, it's just a hornet's nest down in Brunswick, Georgia. But you, Minister Gatewood, your concerns about this election with respect to Donald Trump and his handling the police, and it turns out the Central Park Five, are about to sue him. Yes, I can't look. I lived in New York when that happened.
Right. And see, the thing about it is, as we look at issues, the election issues, like I said, this is not personal at all. What I'm saying about Trump is, and like I said, how it relates to where African Americans and the civil rights community should be, without even being, of course, Kamala Harris's campaign, they have to do what they have to do. At the same time, I'm saying to civil rights organizations, churches, organizations who are in fact on the ground, whether it be Black Voters Matter, who are doing some outstanding work, by the way, but we have to get on the ground. We have to do what we have to do within our space. I'm saying that, and we should be motivated by issues such as police misconduct, the escalation of violence in our communities, compounded by so-called unlawful law enforcement. So my thing is, when you look at the issues and you see how our people are dying in our communities, and then of course we have to talk about Ahmaud Arbery and other issues related to white supremacist domestic terrorism. Make no mistake about it. We never had the eradication of the Ku Klux Klan and all these. Anytime, if anybody who knows anything about civil rights, if you go back and look at the murders, the lynchings, the destruction of Tulsa, all these other things that impacted the economic conditions that came out of the Black community as we came out of slavery, we were actually being very productive economically, so on and so forth. It did not just go away. A lot of it went away through domestic racist terrorism that we are seeing coming out or being escalated by a candidate, Donald Trump. Make no mistake about it. That is, in fact, a real endangerment. We have the facts already showing what happened with the insurrection that took place on January 6th and the promises of a new bloodbath. So these things are not being made up. So what my point is, we as civilized human beings, as ministers, as church folk, and all these people who are in the church, now is the time we must do something to protect the least of these. Jesus said two things about leadership. He said one would be the hireling. The hireling would get the money, run, and leave the sheep to be scattered by the wolves. The good shepherd would stand there regardless of the threat of violence or whatever, and stand there and be willing, if necessary, to lay down his life for the sheep. We must get into the streets if it's necessary, at the political front, at the legislative front, wherever it may be. We have to understand that voting is just one way to participate. It's not the only way to participate, and we must put it all into context and protect the least of these.
Amen to that. Amen. But what do you see as being among the chief concerns, Gabe Drobny, as you've been out here, as you've been knocking on doors, as you've been talking to people? What are people most concerned about, Gabe?
I think that, like we said earlier, that President Biden and his administration did a pretty bad job of painting Vice President Harris's image. And I think that just from an optics standpoint, the border is going to cost her the election. With the combination, the border is a big deal. We see it in urban cities, Chicago, right? Like Attorney Darrell Jones mentioned that, for instance, the Black community, and they have a strong case, and it's a valid case that, we have been the backbone, that Black voters have been the backbone of the Democratic Party. We've been hurting. We've been promised infrastructure. We've been promised that the lead in the water pipes will be cleaned. We've been promised that our schools are going to be funded. We've been promised all these, campaign promises, and yet we're at a deficit, right? Are we really, the Black, argument is, are we really living better off than we were even in 2020, or even when, 2008, we thought Obama was going to be the change, and we're not feeling that. So,
he should have been, and people need to ask him what happened and what he's doing now. He and his wife are the most influential people in the party. They're among the most influential people in the world. Now, Reverend is 83 in a wheelchair with Parkinson's. Now, he stands taller than just about anybody out there. Now, I get it. I'm not mad, but the thing is, this is their moment now. Okay? In his moment, he got you into the White House. Now, he didn't want you to run as an imperialist or govern as one, which is what happened. What he did was run as an unreconstructed, unapologetic progressive. So now, look, don't miss that part, because don't think that Reverend Jackson, this is what we got right here with the Democratic Party, is something all that he came up with. This was not just about browning up imperialism and browning up the party. He said, cut us in or cut it out, or cut us out. Cut us in or cut it out. We are the backbone of the party. We know that the party now is business. We're not getting any contracts. You come here and you expect us to vote. Let me tell you what happened. This predates your lifetime. The liberal titan of the party was Senator Ted Kennedy. He inherited that mantle, and you could reliably go to him in the Senate. You remember this, Minister Gatewood. You remember this Tennessee State Senator, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway. You remember this Darrell Jones. You could reliably go to him, and he would be your ally on progressive and liberal issues. So we knew that he owed a debt to Richard Daley and the Daley family for helping to get his brother into office when 100,000 votes that just appeared out of nowhere, but we'll leave that alone. Okay, we knew that, but we had an opportunity with this racist history. Chicago on paper is the most segregated city in America today. So 40 years ago, Harold Washington didn't want to run because he had been a machine politician. He'd been pushed out, and he was literally sleeping on someone's sofa. When they push you out, they deny you a way to eat.
Yes, they do.
So he finally was able to come back and become a U.S. congressman. So this is where we come in. We said, okay, this woman calls into things were so bad in the housing projects of Chicago that our mayor had to move in the summer of 1982. And so she moved in, and she went to Sears and Roebuck and fixed up her apartment and said, I want to have meetings with the ladies in this housing project so they could know that they can decorate their apartment and it can be lovely. Okay? Well, you got urine in the halls and elevators that do not work. So these, squinch up your face, Darrell Jones, because that's what Mayor Jane Byrne did. So these Black mothers, led by Marion Stamps, went to a Chicago Housing Authority meeting. And the Chicago Housing Authority in 1982 was all white. They literally yanked these Black women out and grabbed them, took them out by their ankles. So their clothes were above their heads and their undergarments were exposed to the world. It was the most horrible thing you'd ever seen. It was carried on TV. Push, which was always full, there were several thousand people there that day, Minister Gatewood, because they said, Reverend, you got to do something, because you can't have these Black mothers disrespected this way. So to compress the story, Reverend used to have a few hours on a Black-oriented radio show, WBM, on a Black-oriented radio station every Sunday, wherever he was in the world. He would talk for a couple of hours to people. Someone called in and said, Reverend, we just need to boycott the fest, which was the Chicago Fest, which was the big moneymaker for the city. And it attracted the top act in the world. And he said, oh, wait a minute. We're going to see what we're going to do. But that's a tall order because this is a big thing. Well, to make the long story short, none of the acts would commit to leaving until Stevie Wonder did, who was the biggest act in the world at that time. He said, whatever hits I have to take, because the promoters were threatening these people with not booking them. He said, whatever happens, I'll take the hit. I'm going to stand with my people. That's why you love Stevie Wonder now, because he has used all of his power to lift up our people, wow, including setting up an office in Washington that he paid for to help John Conyers get the Martin Luther King holiday bill over the line, which cost him at least $1 million at the time. That was almost 40 years ago. So we end up having to boycott the fest. And we're marching. These people are walking down the street in Chicago wearing Chicago t-shirts. That's how hostile Chicago is. So we said, we got to get a black mayor out of this, which we were pushing for. Harold Washington said, no, not me, because I am here. I got my seat and y'all find somebody else. And he said, okay. He said, you register 50,000 people, raise $100,000. Mr. Gardner from Soft Sheen raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. Reverend had all of the organizations based at push. We registered maybe 100, if not 200,000 people. And the mainstream media never saw us coming. We asked Ted Kennedy. We asked Vice President Mondale, who was the presumptive nominee at the time, please don't come in. We're your most loyal base. We're on the verge of getting a black mayor here. Don't you know they came in? They were pelted with eggs and rocks and water bottles. And we said, no, you can't come in here and just diss us like this. So Reverend said, we got to run somebody for president. Now, he wasn't the one, he didn't want to do it because he said, I'm not mainstream enough. Andrew Young, Maynard Jackson, they do well in the mainstream world, in the mainstream media. I'm too much of the maverick, the outsider. But black folks started calling, no, we want you to run. He was like, oh, okay. And he kept talking to Maynard Jackson, and Uncle Andy just said, no, after Jesse, here you go with another one of your harebrained schemes. You sound like a nut. Maynard Jackson had just gotten married again. He had just had a baby. He said, Jesse, I just had a child. And he had been run out of Atlanta. He had to come to Chicago to go to work. He couldn't get employed in Atlanta as a lawyer because of all of the changes he had made in Atlanta. White Atlanta shut him down.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. He was chased out of Atlanta. So Reverend ended up running after the Democrats had just disrespected us so. And this was the presumptive nominee. And Mondale ended up being the nominee. I give you all of that because I think we need to understand these stories because, Gabe, they're not new. So when you hear Minister Gatewood, when you hear Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, he has gone into office understanding that history, and he's in Tennessee. You see Minister Gatewood, who's like, wait a minute, y'all, you're not listening. And this happened 40 years ago. Darrell Jones. I mean, so when you hear me saying things, when you hear Dwight McKee will be on after the election, praise the Lord, he's recovering beautifully. This is what we've seen. And at some point, when are the Democrats going to learn? And y'all can get as upset with me as you want to. Some of you who say that, I'm not a loyal Democrat. Oh, no, don't you dare say that to me. We've built the party.
Right.
But I'm not going to be pimped by the party. I don't do that well.
Right. Absolutely.
The party's got to work for me. And when we're telling you that with a completely winnable race, you have a losing strategy, you've got the wrong people on your team, you need to listen. There's no reason that we should be deadlocked in this race. Not with what Kamala Harris is offering. She's offering you a way out. Should she mention poverty? Of course, but you should demand that she mention poverty. Right. Not just sit back here and say, well, we just got to get her in. Stop doing that plantation politics. That does not work. Minding your master has never gotten you off the plantation, ever. You had to be Nat Turner. You had to be. Sally Hemings, God rest her soul, freed nobody, including her own children. In her life, in Thomas Jefferson's lifetime. I ain't mad at nobody. I'm just saying, Daryl, these are the facts. And you can negotiate all you want to, honey. You got to let these people know that you are serious. This is serious business here.
Absolutely.
And everybody's talking about Trump. And look, they're talking about deploying the police under a Democratic administration. There's something else that's going on here, and y'all need to pay attention because they're all preparing for violence. When you could have the president on TV every night saying, hey, everybody, let us come together. Because when these people want to preach love and brotherhood and all that, they do that. They do it during the Olympics. You fall in love with your neighbor looking at these commercials. We don't see red, yellow, black, brown, and white with these athletes. We see red, white, and blue during every Olympic. That's not what we're seeing right now. There's a lot going on here. And the Democrats want to follow a corporatist line that is not helping us. Before I pivot back to you, Daryl Jones, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, because you're in a state where, we can't, you all threw out three of the members of your body, of your legislative body. What is going on down there?
Well, the same thing that's always been present. It's just more revealed now, and that's white supremacy. White man supremacy is really essentially what it is. And I could be even more specific, white man with money, rich white man supremacy. And I've got a head for a black man's GOTV in just a minute here.
Of course,
but
you got the floor.
All right, and I want to send some love to Minister Gatewood over there. That's our Tennessee neighbor. East Tennessee suffered quite a bit of devastation, but they are finding a way to get to the polls. And I think Gabe would agree that sometimes fear and hurt is a greater motivator in politics than pleasure. Just sitting up there and being comfortable, that status quo, you tend to have less of a sense of urgency and willingness to get out there and fight than when you've got that pain. So that could be very well be the motivator in North Carolina.
Could I just say thank you? I have to leave, but I do want you to know that I love you and I appreciate everyone and what you have to offer to the community. And I'm going to have to go.
We love you, and we love we love both of you and your voices.
Thank you.
No, we need some strong voices, and that's what you are. That is what you are. When I got my text from Texas State Representative GA. I'm sorry, Hardaway. Santita, because he's just going to prove to me that just because he's from the South, he knows how to pronounce my name properly. Thank you. I'm from the South, so I am not hating. But, when I go to North Carolina, where I was born, I'm Santina to everybody. What? I'm Santita. But that's okay. That's my elders, I don't correct them, because who am I to do that? But I want to thank you for all that you all have done. I'm going to be calling upon you in the coming days, because I want to hear from you, Tennessee State Representative, what you're hearing in real time. I have my own pundit panel, and y'all are it.
All right. There you go. God bless you.
And a lot of care and comfort to North Carolina with the minister. And I want to, if I may, Santita, before I leave, Gabe, and that work that you're doing, I'll just remind all of our people who are listening that you got some kinfolks out there that you need to get on the phone and have a conversation with. And I know that whether it was the Industrial Revolution or whether it's been recent migration of Southern Black folks up to the north and to the northeast, that we got folks there. We've got to get on the phone. That's our part of our closest sphere of influence, we got to get on the phone and give them that sense of urgency and tell them you got to make a plan to vote and you've got to vote that plan. And it's got to involve an informed vote, both on the individuals and the issues that are on the ballot. A smart vote is the best thing that you can do, not merely for yourself, but for your family, and your family being not just your immediate family, but those children that are coming generations down the line. What we do now in this election, I thought that the Obama election was the most consequential election of my lifetime, but we have wrapped it up and we're at another level. This is it. We will either be able to regroup and start to reclaim some of the freedoms that we've lost as a people, some of the freedoms that women have lost in terms of their reproductive rights. And I tell people, I'm not pro-abortion. I don't know anybody who is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-autonomy of your body. I am pro-freedom. So there's a way for Black folks to get engaged. There's a way for you to do it within the sets of principles and values that you have. And I encourage everyone, not just Black men, but Black women who did not intend to go to the polls. You need to go vote, and you need to cast a smart vote. Do your research. We talked about how important it was not to be a one issue voter, and neither do you need to be inclined to be a one source researcher. Make sure that's a broad range so you can actually get at the truth. And then when you go to the polls, you have to weigh what your priorities, plural, are, not the one thing that's jerking at your heartstring.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I'll thank you again, Santita, for always providing that leadership in the form of being the great communicator that you are. And that's both informing our people, inspiring our people, and involving them in seeking and accomplishing, setting their own destiny. So with that, everyone take care.
Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, also known as GQ.
Oh, let me remind you, Santita, the reason that I have this particular tie on is that we are in a month that is created, not created, but one that's designed to create awareness for domestic violence, purple, and of course for breast cancer, pink. So I'm trying to put it all into one tie here and do my symbolism. But I encourage everyone to take advantage of the information that's being highlighted during this month. And Black folk, y'all are victims of the disparities in health care and well care. That's why we're more impacted by breast cancer and the other cancers. In the future, perhaps we'll be able to talk about the new medical research, which has suggested that there's a closer tie to the cancers that men are more susceptible to, and that's the prostate cancer and breast cancer, how your immediate family is an indicator of whether you are more likely or not to get one of those cancers. So it's not merely now about tracking the men in your immediate family, but if your mom has breast cancer or your sister has had breast cancer, then it raises the odds for you to have a cancer if you're a man, prostate cancer being one of the primary ones. So perhaps we'll be able to talk about that as we go further down the line once we have President Kamala Harris in office, and we can start to direct those resources to curing the inequities in healthcare.
Absolutely. Carol Soskin is a survivor. My sister, sending you so much love. Sending you so much
Thank
love.
you.
God bless you.
Everyone take care. Bye-bye.
You know what? The vote has been impacted. It impacts us in so many ways. And these big cases, Gabe, that we have seen, the only way you get on a jury And quite frankly, the way you get a judge is by an election. You need to vote. That having been said, I think there's a convergence in the Ahmaud Arbery case that we cannot ignore, because his family used the vote after they saw that their child, their beloved, had been murdered to seek justice, and they were able to get it. But now we thought that this was over. We thought that things had been settled, that they were found guilty of murder, they were given these sentences, boom. Then I get this text from you, Attorney Darrell Jones, and you said, oh no, it's not over. In fact, we're still in the midst of the Ahmaud Arbery case because it seems like the investigation for these men who were convicted for these murderers didn't end. They started another investigation of their own. Talk to us, because now they're trying to have a new trial.
Yeah, precisely, Santita. The three killers of Ahmaud Arbery filed a motion for new trial, and in the state of Georgia, it opens up, whatever attack you want to have on how the case proceeded. It allows that to become open. And so what they've done is they hired an investigator, and the investigator has gone to talk to members of the jury to try to find out any information they could to try to overturn the verdict that was reached in this case. And one of the things that the investigator did is that he went to talk to what was the sole Black male juror on that poll, and juror number 380. The only thing was, he recorded the conversation with juror 380, but he never told him he was recording the conversation. He knew that juror 380 was a very religious man, just devoutly religious man. So he opened it up by saying, "Can I pray with you?" on the juror's porch. And then after having him, trying to earn the trust through the prayer, then brought him into the conversation of Ahmaud Arbery, his experiences, what went on, that he was there working with the defense team, and they just wanted to find out how they could get better, right, as they presented cases, and wanted to get some information about what went on with the jury. Well, needless to say, he recorded the information and then attempted to turn it on the guy to say that, he had a prejudice against Ahmaud Arbery, that he had a prejudice against the white killers, that he said that he wanted to help out the family of Ahmaud Arbery, and that's why he wanted to be on that jury, which would made him prejudice going on to the jury and could have necessitated a whole new trial. Well, juror 380 was called as a witness, and it just gets so bad. Juror 380 was called as a witness for this motion for new trial. Let's remember this. This is one of the most controversial cases in our country. The judge went through great lengths throughout the trial to have the anonymity of the jurors, because they were afraid for each of the jurors' safety because of the racism and everything else that's just so thick evolving around this case. They tried to first introduce transcripts of the conversation that this investigator had with juror 380 that would have revealed his identity. Because it's within the document. And so the judge was able to withhold that. However, when they called 380 to the stand, somehow his picture, his image was captured and has been sent out to the public. So people now know who juror 380 is. Those who mean him ill will, now have his image. And that's out there, and it's very concerning. But 380, to his credit, stood in there, withstood their questions and the examination from the three killers' attorney with regards to what happened. And it was just incredible watching it all unfold in the courtroom, because what was clear is, and let me just, because some people may not be aware. 380 is not a well-lettered man, as we say. He doesn't have the degrees and all this other stuff. But what he did have on his side was the truth. And that's what he kept coming back to. So when they tried to put words in his mouth saying that he had said that he wanted to be on this jury to help the Ahmaud Arbery family, his response was, "Sir, that's not what I said. I said I wanted to be on this jury to help the family, and help find the truth, whatever the truth was. And I was going to lean on my faith in God
to help make it to that point, and to watch them try to pick him apart. And, because they wanted to get a new trial, they knew that they got a new trial, that they have a whole new shot at trying to have the three men acquitted from this murder. But it didn't stop there, because what they also did was that Kevin Goff, which was one of the defense attorneys that was there, representing William Roddy Bryant, the one who took the film that everyone became familiar with. They had him on the stand, and they tried to make him appear as though he was ineffective in providing assistance as counsel to Kevin Goff. Why? Because if they show that his representation was lacking and below the acceptable legal standards, they could get a new trial for Kevin Goff. And so that's what they did. They went after him. That attorney actually fell on the sword for his client, saying that there were things that he thought he should have done that he didn't do, that he would do differently, and that there were steps that didn't take, and he apologized for not taking the steps. The question is now, will that end up in the new trial for William Roddy Bryant as a result of the testimony that's received? We won't know that until probably between January and March, when the judge comes back in for hearings.
Is the chance great that, well, what do you think is going to happen here? I mean, in the context of Brunswick, Georgia. I mean, not from Chicago, which is where Gabe and I are from. I mean, in the context of, wait a minute, let's set the stage, Gabe. This is 2021, yes?
That's
Daryl
correct.
Jones?
This trial happened in 2021. The death was in 2020.
Yeah. And in real time, they were told by the prosecutor, because they're connected to the police, because this is part of what I think bedevils Kamala Harris, the vice president. I mean, and she doesn't have to speak to this. But, dealing with her record as a prosecutor is something that people have taken, with which they've taken umbrage. And she didn't do this. This prosecutor said, go home, wash your hands, and we're gonna clean this up.
Right.
But the fact, there's that. And then you also have the fact that this is an unlettered man who can think. Every person we went to college with, y'all, is not a great thinker. You know that. Okay, sometimes the last book they read was for their last final. Okay? These are the people, that's the secondary question that the campaign needs to be speaking to, and they're not. Mm-hmm. And those are the voters. That's the majority of Americans. Given that this happened, I mean, that this community really was, these guys could drive in their trucks and chase this man down. I mean, I'm just trying to paint the social context in which this murder happened. Can they get a new trial? I mean, this doesn't seem that far-fetched, because they dispatched the investigators and they said, no, we're gonna have a do-over on this thing.
Yeah,
do you think this will work?
I don't think that for Gregory and Travis McMichael that they'll be successful in their move with a new trial in this context. I do think that for William Roddy Bryant, that there's a strong shot. There's a good possibility that he may end up having a new trial because of the incompetency of counsel that he received in this case. I do think that is a possibility.
What was his role? William Roddy, remind people.
Right. William Roddy Bryant was the neighbor when Ahmaud was jogging through the neighborhood, that went and got his vehicle and worked to trap Ahmaud, as Gregory McMichael said. They trapped him like a rat before Travis McMichael, which is Greg McMichael's son, took out his 12 gauge and blew several holes in his chest, where you could really see through the chest and from the holes of what they did in Ahmaud. After William Roddy Bryant and the other two trapped him and Travis killed him, it was Gregory McMichael, the father, who called Jackie Johnson, who was the prosecutor at that time, saying that they killed this person. What should they do? And Gregory McMichael had worked for Jackie Johnson as an investigator in Jackie Johnson's when she was state's attorney there in Brunswick, in Glynn County. And so Jackie Johnson had the police step back and allowed them. They took Travis and Michael in for some questions and released them. Jackie Johnson Jen said, leave them alone, don't do anything, no prosecution. And it wasn't until the film was subsequently came out, which was some 74 days later, that the Georgia Bureau of Investigations got involved. And within days of GBI getting involved, that we then had the arrest of all three men. Otherwise, they would never have been arrested. Jackie Johnson had no intention of doing anything. She lied to the family. She lied as to how it happened. She lied and said that Ahmaud was killed in the house when in fact he was killed in the street. And there's just a series of lies that she had put out and then tried to really cover everything up and not have any prosecution. That's why now Jackie Johnson has been indicted, has charges pending against her. And the question now, of course, is when will her charges come to trial?
Everybody, what do you think? And I love you too, Carol Soskin. I mean, Gabe Drobny. See, this is when you see the importance, to me, of down ballot voting and the danger that we face, which is beyond the White House. It's your house, right? What he's been painting, the picture he's been painting for us, Daryl, which is one that I think is important for us to see. By June, he had knocked on 30,000 doors. So he was hearing the mood of the people and why they were going to vote this way or that way or not at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like, and now it's even more challenging because after President Obama's remarks to Black men, and he hasn't apologized. Okay, Gabe, you made a face. What was the impact of those? Because see, he's of another generation. Well, maybe he's of another generation, Daryl. He's not young enough to be a child. And I'm not infantilizing you when I say that, but you have another view here. What were you turned off by what he said, or did you think that, oh my gosh, this was not the thing to say? What?
Santita, I've been fortunate that you've been a friend. I know your brother. I've got to know your brother well, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, and I'm so blessed that I've been be able to cross paths with so many diverse backgrounds. And I'm a diehard. I love politics. This is what I do. It's my bread and butter. It's my life's passion. And it just wasn't the right time and the right place. As a surrogate right now, President Obama should not be the voice, right? I'd rather have Stacey Abrams or
Wow.
It's just so much more. Look, I mean, the Black community actually lost seats and representation in this past Democratic primary, and it's not being talked about, and that's a problem. We lost seats in New York, and you're seeing it across the country, right? And I feel ignorant right now on this on this call and on this show because Attorney Daryl Jones, I can't thank you enough. I didn't even know about this case because it's not I've been caught up in elections, but I wish I should know about this case, but it's not openly discussed. The education isn't there, the information isn't accessible. This is a big deal, and once I get off this call, I'm going to read into it. But I didn't know about the reopening of this case. And once again, the systemic hard oppression. I wish I should know about this case. And this is in terms of optics, it's not right, but this is a great opportunity window to talk about this right now, and they should be talking about it because it's a serious issue. Yeah, I watched the town hall the other night. I didn't hear about this.
What political? How do you think this would have made a difference if they had brought up this case?
Well, if it's still ongoing, they should be talking about it in Georgia, right? Just like we talked about the past 2 hours, you have to get local stakeholders involved in terms of pastors, the moms, the activists, local leaders, schools, teachers, factory workers, bartenders. You have to have everyone. Everyone's got to do a little bit to add up. And in Georgia, I mean, this should be talked about. I mean, there's been so many issues in Georgia. The Secretary of State, issues with the case of Rudy Giuliani, and then sorry, Attorney General. What was the name of the lawsuit that that they proposed to? She was a black woman. They countered it after Trump got arrested. She was being investigated.
I mean, she and her mom.
Yes.
Who just got Giuliani's apartment
Yes.
and his other properties.
Yeah,
it's two election workers. Right.
They put somebody on the stand though. It was the one who was prosecuting Trump, right?
Oh, Fani Willis.
Yes. You know, that it's like, you know, these things, like, this is where we lack as a party, right? And this is why you have to have activists and local stakeholders who are sure nonpartisan and whatnot, so that it you know, it brings the attention and they're closer to the issue, you know. So that's just how I feel right now. And you know, once again, I'm rooting for Harris and our campaign so much, but if we lose, you know, I'm not going to think about it now, but we'll look back and we know why.
Well, so you're saying you see there's a disconnect.
100%. You know, since I've been fortunate to be on the radio show back in June, we've talked about it, right? We talked about I remember in June we talked about Biden's Morehouse speech. You know, that it wasn't the right tone, it wasn't the right dialect. We talked about the lack of investment in Black stakeholder media, that it wasn't sufficient. You know, they should have been paying and reaching out to the base and being more creative, and you know, because then it makes people engage, makes people feel involved in the campaign. You know, you should be hiring more stakeholders like factory workers and local teachers. You shouldn't have to have a college degree to be in the campaign, you know, and that's, you know, what we're seeing right now, and that's why we have issues like this case being brought up again. Because
and you know, Santita, that's been a consistency. This didn't start with Vice President Harris, right? This went all the way back to President Biden. And you know, we know that he was not the favorite child when he was elected. He was the alternate to what we didn't want when he got elected. And the one consistency I think that we have seen since throughout the Biden administration has been a lack of communication to be able to communicate their successes. You know, there are plenty of successes, but they don't communicate the successes, so no one knows about the successes.
But why not?
I certainly can't answer that question. I just know that they haven't been communicated, that there's a lack of what I would call marketing, right? That they don't know how to market their success. And their failure to market the success is what has put this imprimatur on Vice President Harris right now, because she's now has tried to carry the bale of water from what has been marketed now and seen as a less than successful administration, that she's now, you know, has to pull the water on that and try to run her own. And so that's part of what she's running into. And lifting up another piece of what Gabe said here in Brunswick, Georgia, right? They're not mentioning Johnson, the prosecutor in this case.
Oh, we couldn't hear you. Okay. In Brunswick, Georgia.
They're not mentioning that Jackie Johnson, the prosecutor in this case, you know, still has trial that's been set. You know, they're not mentioning that it was the Arbery family and the community, Gabe, you'll love this, you know, that bound together, because Jackie Johnson was up for re-election. She was beyond the time for anyone to file against her. She was running unopposed, and the community and the family got together and petitioned to get another name on the ballot. And for the first time in Glenn County's history, a sitting prosecutor was defeated in an election. There's no discussion about that. This is right up what Vice President Harris is talking about.
That's a big win. I mean, and if she can't say it, her top surrogate should. Warnock should say it. I mean, you know, and wait a minute, and you should amplify, which would help her, in contrast, what the prosecutor Jackie Johnson did.
Exactly.
I mean, exactly. I'm like, all of these misses are like mystifying. I'm like, how do you do this? This is the low-hanging fruit is falling in your lap. I mean, and if you want to talk to young people, the power of your vote, the Arbery family understood this. That's why in the midst of their grief, they said, wait a minute, the prosecutor did what? Oh, no, we're going for her. Didn't they have to get a petition?
That's correct.
Okay, so I mean, they are politically engaged, which is why you need to be politically engaged, which is why you got to call your people.
Right.
Because if that's what we have to understand. I mean, Gabe, because to me, these are talking points.
Yeah. Yeah,
Number one, like
the
you said, you
Arbery
pick up the
family,
story, you put it
right?
out there, right? What?
Yeah, the Arbery family had never participated in politics. They didn't even vote. They didn't even vote. They didn't see the worth. It wasn't worth it in their mind to vote. When their son, their nephew, was killed, and the prosecutor did what she did and lied to them and tried to suppress it and stop the prosecution of it, that's when they got engaged with politics. That's when they started understanding the importance of the elected prosecutor and what the prosecutor could do. That the messaging that's available through that is just incredible. And it is a big miss. It is a big miss. And it's something that should be lifted up and certainly, talked about so people can understand. That's why today at 1 p.m. Eastern time in Brunswick, Georgia, the Arbery family, the whole entire family, cousins, nieces, nephews, all of it are getting on this John Lewis Good Trouble bus, and they're going to vote today. And they're telling everyone, this is Arbery Day at the polls. We're telling you, you need to go out and vote down ballot because of the importance. And we have given up our son, our loved one, for this. And that's what's happening today, Santita. I don't know what better messaging there could be for Kamala Harris and anything else that would be teed up any better than seeing what a dirty prosecutor has done and what a good prosecutor can do.
But that's why that has to be picked up. Perhaps you could get some talking points together and send them to Gabe, so that Gabe could. I mean, you know what? You don't even have to give them to the campaign. Just give them to people who talk to people. Because for us not to, I didn't know about this until Daryl brought it to my attention.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was filtered through local news. It didn't make the national news because it's obviously not important to them. It's very important to me. And it ought to be important to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they're concentrating, they're majoring in the minor. And this, I'm not going to say that anymore. I'm not going to say, I'm going to say I want her to win. Let me just put it that way. And we've got to do everything we can to help her to win. But you got to help me help you. And I'm telling you, just having these, as you said, the rallies.
Not going to get into it, Santita. Trying to out-Trump Trump,
Wait, did you say trying to out-Trump Trump?
A little bit. It feels like that.
You can't do that.
I know. It's like
that. First of all, when you are dealing with someone who has nothing to lose and who has lived that way, you can't win against them. You have to let them do what they do and be done with it. You have to stay in your lane.
Mm-hmm.
She's not that girl, if you will. She's not. So someone said that she needs to go in hard and you can't shame him, honey, because he's going to come at you with some things that will make your own mother not recognize you. Don't do that. Because see, men like that, they're not gentlemen. So gentle man, they're not.
Well, it's just giving them more name recognition too,
But I mean, the thing is, it's not even the point. The point is, what you do is you kind of break through the wall and say, you know what, you guys, my people, my American people, my fellow Americans, this is what I want to do. This is what I see. Not just middle class. My parents struggled. And they were middle class people, university professors. Life was not easy for them. Do you know how expensive it is in San Francisco and Oakland? I mean, it was, and I would say that. Do you know? I mean, it was hard.
Yeah.
And I had to work in McDonald's so I could get spending money in college.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I am not mad at you. At a school full of affluent Black kids, even though half of Howard is on financial aid, another big chunk of Howard University, where I went to school, these are people who are third and fourth generation and fifth generation college students whose feet have never touched the ground. There is a band of Black people who have lived with housekeepers and maids and cooks, and they have lived with wealth. That is real. Don't act like we're in a caste, but we got classes within the caste. So I'm just saying, you can't sound, but most of us are at the bottom or struggling to get up into the lower middle class. That's where we are. Yep. So you got to campaign that way. But guess what, Daryl and Gabe? That's most Americans. Yeah. Most Americans are in that kind of pain. And we're the ones who get on this show and other shows who say, do you know what the Biden-Harris administration have done? They've done this, this. The court and the Senate blocked them from this, but this is what they sought to do. And if you care about this case, you got to vote, because the prosecutor was voted in, and she felt that she had space because she wasn't looking at another election immediately.
Yeah.
She hadn't counted on these people pulling up a petition and going after her in her home county. I mean, am I reading this correctly, Daryl?
And 100%, yeah, no, you're 100% on point. That's exactly what happened.
So what's the path forward now, Daryl? You're going to be on the bus with them today. Is there anything we can do? What is next? Because I have to tell you, you disoriented me with that yesterday. I mean, I immediately went into my phone and I was like, wait a minute, you got to be joking me. These people have the nerve, because that means they feel that they're innocent. That's the thing that blows my mind. I mean, I didn't intend to see the picture of this young man on the ground. I didn't intend. You don't turn your head fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me. I burst into tears because I said, I've got brothers, I've got nephews, I've got godchildren. I have men that I love, my friends. I mean, and nobody's safe. And this is like, it's not even low-hanging fruit, it's falling in your lap. You can say, wait a minute, if this case means to you, you got to vote the judge in. Fonnie Willis, that judge was up for election.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be on the jury, you got to be a registered voter. These are the things that if she said it one time, just one time, okay, you're rolling your eyes. Hey, Gabe, every time I bring up something, you're rolling your eyes.
No, I agree. No, sorry. I agree.
I'm having fun with you. I'm just trying to put it out there. I'm trying to be helpful. While some people are saying, that that I'm not being positive enough. I'm like, honey, this man has been out. He's been out on the campaign trail. He's telling you what the campaign needs to do correctly. Okay, I've done musicals, like off Broadway or Broadway bound plays, musicals. You know what? After every performance, or during the intermission, they have spotters in the audience who come and tell you that you dropped the line. When we went over the rehearsal this afternoon, remember we changed the script, so you were supposed to pause here. You didn't pause here. You got about one more time to do that, then your understudies coming in. You know that? Broadway is hard. So when you become the best at anything, preaching is hard. It ain't. Campaigning is hard. Being great at what you do ain't easy. And when you have these, what did you say, these unlettered people?
Mm-hmm.
These people are smart as they can possibly be. Treat them that way. Yeah. They have points of view, and they're not being touched. But the Republicans are touching them. They're putting out community centers.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they've been erecting them for years. They're like, oh, we see an opportunity. Yeah. Daryl, come on. Help me. I feel like I'm losing my breath. I'm like, help me. I mean, what, Daryl, in your mind, what is the path forward?
Well, I think that as it applies specifically to the Arbery case and the path forward, we know that the be around January, February when Judge Walmsley comes back with his decision. What we did this time is what we'll do next time. We packed the courtroom from people from the state of Georgia, from Atlanta, all the way up here to Brunswick. So the judge and everyone that's there and has view of this knows that this is not something that the community is losing sight of. We will be laser focused on it, because it's not just about Ahmaud Arbery, the individual that is now gone. It's about all the other Ahmaud Arbery's that are throughout this country and how they will be treated, how they can be treated. And so, we'll be shoulder to shoulder with the family as we have been throughout. And I can tell you that, the path forward involves people from around the country remaining vigilant, remaining focused, not letting your guard down, and being certain that you're watching to see this through. That these three killers do not get out of prison, that these three killers do not get the opportunity to have another shot at the trial to change their trial strategy so that they can try to say, whatever it is they may try to say to make themselves victims, to make themselves heroes. One of the things we heard from William Roddy Bryant's attorney was that William Roddy Bryant thought that he was a hero when he trapped Ahmaud and they took him down in that white community. They thought he was a hero. He had thought he had done a gallant thing, a great thing for their community in taking him down. So those are the types of things that we've got to be vigilant about. And I won't even go into the comment that they thought was an appropriate term for an African American. We won't even get in to that as that came out from
just to tell me what did they do?
From that hearing, because it was it was something to hear the derogatory term that was used, and for William Roddy Bryant and his attorney to think that referring to African Americans in a derogatory sense, in some
using the N word.
It wasn't even the N word. It was worse than a coon. Let me just say that. Was somehow acceptable.
I want to remind. See, I don't want to bury that because I want to remind people. See, if we dance around this thing, we act as if this is over. This is very real. We have kids in school in Georgia who will drive through Brunswick, who might be speeding, or who might just be driving at speed limit or below it. If they don't know where they are, if they don't know what the atmosphere is down there, Daryl, they are vulnerable. To be forewarned is to be forearmed.
Yeah.
So I want them to know how people are referring to them.
Well, in this specific instance, Kevin Goff, the attorney who was representing William Roddy Bryant, was sharing with us that William Roddy Bryant regularly referred to blacks as spooks, right? The spook. And the term spook is what they were using to refer to African Americans. And somehow the attorney, Kevin Goff, believed that he didn't want William Roddy Bryant to testify because he thought that he might refer to blacks as spooks on the stand, and while acceptable in his world, would not be understood by members of the public, general public, and the jury. And so, that's part of the atmosphere of what's going on in this area, in this environment, and in this community.
Because that's the context in which this man was murdered. See, if people don't understand the context, they don't understand. Well, how could this happen in America 2024, honey? I drive through, we see the Confederate flags, we start speeding up. If we turn down the street there, that is not paved, we turn around and say, hey, it's time for us to go. Look, it is time for us to go. So I want Gabe. Yeah, Daryl, is there anything you want to say? I'm going to let Gabe close us out.
No. I'm getting ready to head off to Jacksonville, Florida, because they've been flipping votes, Gabe, flipping votes at the polling place in Jacksonville, Florida. People go in and vote for Kamala Harris. Their sheet comes out for Donald Trump, and they have to see it and change it before they put it into the next machine. So we're headed down there to do a press conference on that, Santita, and I'll keep you all up to date with what's happening.
Well, please let us know, because that's why I've never liked these machines. Reverend didn't like them when they became predominant more than 30 years ago, because I don't care how it's flipped. I don't like seeing them flipped. Just let's get the votes and let's be done. Okay.
Absolutely.
Sending you much love, traveling grace and mercies with you. Gabe,
great work.
What is your concluding thought? You've heard a whole lot today, and you and I have to do some more talking so we can. There's just a lot more that we need to know.
Yeah,
but
so
I wanted to give you something to take back to your people too.
Yeah. There is a lot of hope, right? And, like we just, the closing statement of attorney Daryl Jones, we have to stay focused that it's not always about just electoral. You have to give people the power, and you have to stay committed and focused, and you have to lock arms. You need to add numbers. You need to add people. You need to have a multiracial coalition, and you need to, have that dialect. And like I tell, because as a self-proclaimed progressive, my pitch to everyone who's listening: if we lose this election, there's no saying that the Democratic Party will rebrand and will go more left. I think we are threatened to actually go to appease more to the centrist, center-right vote. So I know it's a really hard thing. And I know it's something that you're gonna that a lot of voters, young voters, and progressive voters are gonna really have to think about, and that it's a very, very sensitive, emotional topic. But we cannot let our movement die. We took a lot of heat this year. We had a lot of losses, but we got to stay focused, and we have to understand what we built, and we can't let it go to waste. We have to stay unified and then regroup after November 5th. So I encourage everybody to do your research and to really think about what the long-term strategy is, not just the short-term.
I thank you for your service, for your work, for knocking on all of these doors, and for being concerned enough to reach out to say, hey, I want to tell you something. I want to let you know what I see, because everybody needs to know what's really happening out here. That's the way that in the final week and a half before the election, you can rectify things, because you can say, you know what, this is my October surprise. Let me drop over here. That's what needs to happen. That's the only thing we're trying to do. You're right, Carol. Gabe is very special, and I'm so grateful for this young man and for the work that you do. And I have faith in the system, and I know that it works when you work it. That's why everybody, you need to vote. You need to be involved, because the system does work when you work it. That's what the founding fathers, they were human beings. Nobody's perfect, but guess what they knew? They knew that we need to leave space in this document so that it can grow and breathe and change with the times. And they knew that on election day is when everybody is equalized.
Yeah.
Okay? So please get out and vote. And I want to thank you, Gabe. And you know what? I'm going to let me know when you can come back on. And I'll even shift my taping schedule for you, because we want to hear about what you're seeing. Really the unvarnished truth. Because that way we can start making our phone calls, because everybody, there are things that we can be doing. Because now, to be fair to Kamala Harris and her team, they can't do everything. We're the ones who have to campaign. We're the ones who have to do it. We have to do it. We're the ones who have to make it happen. I can't wait to see Michelle Obama on the campaign trail, but that's not going to be enough. It'll be a great thing. It's just not going to be enough. You are the one who's enough. You're the one who's going to make the difference. Okay. So, Gabe Drobny, thank you so much for your work. Sending you so much love today.
You as well, Santita. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you to all the listeners.
Always. You're home here.
Absolutely.
I want to see you before you get out of town, young man.
I'll be back.
All right, hurry up. Hurry home.
There we go.
Sending you much love.
Thank you.
Love you, everybody. God bless.